It is always a pleasure to have my next guest on the show. It's the Fury, Glory Watson, who had the biggest win of her career at NEF 51, beating Hilarie Rose in the very first round. Glory, how are you?
I'm good. Fantastic. How are you, Ryan?
I am good. And, we talked a little bit before we went live here, but easily the biggest win of your career. We know how good Hilarie is. She was on Dana White's Contender Series. And Cheyenne Bays, or now Vismus, her last name has changed. She couldn't finish her. Hilarie went the distance with her, but you got her out of there the second this fight hit the ground, basically. What does this win signify as to where you're at right now in your career?
So this, as we kind of talked about before, the win was a phenomenal feeling. I haven't felt like that since my very first amateur win when I like feeling on top of the world. So this fight really, this win kind of, for me anyway, really solidified my top spot. I fought other girls that are ranked a little bit higher than Hilarie, but Hilarie has been fighting a lot longer. She has a lot more experience, or more experience than some of these other girls, and she has some really sort of looking for like high quality places that she's been. So the win over Hilarie was huge, and for me, it kind of solidified my spot as one of the top regional females because she kind of is that in that spot where the competition is very close to what you would expect out of someone in the UFC, and she's very high level for a regional MMA female. So that win was just huge.
We'll dive into the actual fight and the specifics here in a second, but first I wanted to ask you, so your confidence, where is it at right now? Because you lost your final amateur fight, you lost your pro debut, and then you lost that kickboxing bout to Hilarie. So I have to imagine at that point, your confidence may have been shaken a little bit, right? Like, can you just talk me through where you're at now compared to then?
Yeah, so there was a moment actually in my second MMA fight. It was Allie Beth Milliron that I fought, and there was a moment where I remember thinking because she got the better of a striking exchange, and in my head I went, I don't want this to be another Cara fight, which was my first amateur loss, and well, first and only. So I felt that switch, and I felt myself completely change. I went from being the feeling super self-conscious about everything that I was doing, being like, oh, that didn't land and she countered, now I can't do this again, to being like, it's time to go. It doesn't matter what you throw, foot on the gas, it's time to go. So that moment is something that I actually, you and Greg were doing the commentating on that, and you actually talk about it. You could just see that switch flip. So it's something that I've been working on a lot, not just in my home gym, but in gyms all over the state. So I train out of Young's MMA, and we have a smaller team now than we used to in the past, and we don't really have a lot of active fighters. We have a lot of people that are active in the gym, but so coach is able to travel a lot with me. And we've started traveling down to the academy in Portland and training with Paul Gorman, who is very accomplished as an amateur and a pro, and then his head coach, Jay Jack. So they have completely changed or added to the mental side of things for me. So my confidence is, I wouldn't say I feel crazy good confident. I feel really bad. It's just different, and I'm really happy with it.
Yeah, well, it sure looks it. And again, wow, what a win. And like I said earlier, Glory, the second that this fight hit the ground, it was basically over. It didn't take long at all for you to find that RNC, and she tapped. I talked to Tyler Little going into this fight here, and he interviewed both you and Hillary. And he told me that you didn't say this verbatim, but he got like the impression that he felt your game plan with this fight against Hillary would be to get it to the ground. Is that accurate?
No. Nope. We weren't like, definitely do this, don't do that. But we thought she was going to shoot. I spent a lot of camp doing a lot of defensive wrestling, and we thought she was going to try to take it to the ground. So I had been working a lot on distance management and kind of playing to my strengths with my incredibly long arms. Um, but it didn't really end up being that way. It just everything that happened just kind of it wasn't like it wasn't premeditated at all. I felt it and I did it.
Mhm. What did you think of just the striking back and forth in there with her? Did you feel you were getting the better or vice versa? Because sometimes it's tough to tell. I mean, we weren't cage side for this fight. They had us back a little ways, and with the monitor, it was tough to get the angles sometimes. You know, when we're versus when we're cage side. How did you feel of just about the striking with you and Hillary in there?
Mhm. So my perspective in the fight is different now that I've watched it. So my perspective in the fight, I felt like the striking was decently even. I'm a little bit of a slower starter than Hillary was, especially in that fight. She came out, she landed a really nice straight right, and she landed a really nice calf kick as well in like the opening seconds of the fight that actually like knocked my leg out from underneath me. So that I remember that clearly, and I remember not feeling like she's winning these striking exchanges. I remember feeling pretty back and forth with it. But after watching the footage, if you saw especially the early minute and a half of the striking, um, I think you would definitely say that she was getting the better of the striking exchanges, or she was a little bit more balanced in her movement than I was. But I could watching it. I've only watched it once, and I only ever watch it once. But I you could see or I could see myself starting to get the reads a little bit more, start using my movement a little bit better, finding a better connection to the floor, and it ended up working out. So it's good.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you feel more comfortable in there because you already shared the cage with her in a kickboxing bout? Did that add to your confidence, or just did you feel a certain way about it because you already spent some time in the cage with her in a different kind of sport?
It people ask me actually a similar question, and it wasn't something that I really had a lot of effect on me mentally in that regard. I because it's so different. It really is. It's just so different. Kickboxing versus boxing versus taekwondo versus karate versus like the K1 rules versus the Muay Thai rules, like everything. It is so much different. So I kind of had a basic idea of how she like her style. She throws very like straight technical punches, very good. So like I knew that, but other than that, her game plan could have been entirely different because it's an entirely different sport. So it was kind of I didn't want to be too focused on it. I wanted to take it as what it was, and it was a brand new slate.
Mhm. Run me through the finish for anybody that didn't get a chance to see. Tell us how that transpired, and are you surprised as to just how fast she tapped?
So the finish, coach and I were actually talking about it, and he said that excuse me, Jesus, watching it, it looked like she was trying to set up a spinning elbow. Or I parried a kick and maybe it kind of threw her off balance. So she went to throw into the spinning elbow. And I was able to get to her back a little bit faster. And I popped the hips in, went for the lift, got her to the floor. She kind of went to a turtle position, which I've finished three of my now five, right? 5-1. Yes. Three of my five wins have been from that position, from that turtle position into ground and pound and people exposing their neck. So she kind of put herself in that position, which I kind of forced. I guess it wasn't like, oh, she wasn't just like, I'm going to do this. It's kind of just the way my body sits and everything kind of forces her to come to that turtle position and started with the ground and pound. I had a wrist ride with the opposite hand and snuck the choke in. And I couldn't quite tell if it was here or just on the neck. So I decided to squeeze and I felt it sink in a little bit more and I was like, it's there. And then when she tapped, I think English was on like the opposite side of us. So I remember I'm like, she's tapping. I'm like, do not let go. Do not let go until he comes over here and tells you to. So I waited and it was, I'm not super celebratory usually. I mean, I get excited, but that one I was over celebratory and a part of me does feel guilty about it because that is a hard feeling losing. It's been there, but. I was
Well, again, I mean, Glory, the whole place went nuts when you won, and it was funny watching you try to make your way backstage afterwards. You were like a freaking rock star. Everyone's trying to get a piece of you. Everyone's trying to like reach out and touch your hands and congratulate you. I mean, you fought in Bangor already a couple of times, right? Like it has to add more pressure for you, right? I mean, if you're just going to be honest, do you feel that when you're fighting and you have all of these fans that are right here in your hometown?
it's a part of me, yes, but I also have it's everywhere I've fought, I have had a really good turnout. Even when I fought in New York, when I fought in New York, I was the outsider. The other girl was from New York. She lived like 15 minutes from the venue. But I didn't get booed. I got cheered, everything like that. And I didn't sell I think I sold one ticket. So I haven't had the feeling of not really being welcome in a place yet. But there is that slight bit of pressure just because you want to perform, but it's also my fans are super amazing that even if I lost, I feel like every single one of them would still act the same way. They would be like, "You did so good." Like, just do your best. They definitely follow suit. It's got to be like my mom. My mom has to be like whispering in everyone's ear, just being like, "Everyone's gonna have a great time. Just say nice things." Because my fans are amazing. Actually, the Bangor fans in general have been amazing.
Do you know how many tickets you sold for this event?
I sold more than one. I, I sold quite a few. But I also have a giant family, like giant. So that helps a lot.
So we did talk, a little bit before the fight. You reached out to me because you potentially needed an MRI. Obviously, it couldn't have been that serious because you went there, you had the fight, and you did your thing and won. But tell me how that played into just this camp. Was there ever a chance that maybe you were gonna step away and pull out of this fight?
Yep. So the injury that kind of happened in training. It was just kind of a fluke accident that if we tried to recreate it, we couldn't recreate it again. Just my knee made a really loud pop sound that was absolutely terrifying and pretty painful. So instantly we went to panic mode, like, oh my gosh, you're gonna need surgery, all of these things. And the immediate thing was we have to get it looked at. We have to make sure everything's okay. If everything's okay, then we take it from there. But if it's not, then we figure out what direction we're gonna go. So I reached out to you. I was like, I gotta get this MRI, and I went that was on Thursday night. Friday morning, I had seen a primary care doctor to get my referral for the MRI, and I also went and saw a physical therapist. They both told me, they were like, it is looking at it right now. I don't think you need an X-ray. I don't think you need an MRI. They're like, I think it was just a loud sound, and it's probably going to be pretty sore, but I don't think there's any lasting damage. So having two different opinions of that, it was very reassuring. So I continued to train on it. I actually trained on it Friday morning before I went to the doctor. And it was a little bit tender so that was what, 2 or 3 weeks before the fight. So it was a little bit tender for a while, but it started to loosen up and everything. And the night that it happened, I after training, I got in the car and I drove home, and I'm in the car and I'm just thinking, obviously my leg hurts. I'm crying. I'm like, my career is over. And I call coach and I'm like, I can still do this. I can still fight. I'm like, I'm still fighting. I can still fight. I'm like, I know I can beat her. I can still beat her. I know I can do it. I can do it. And it, I, the relief I got when I had two different people tell me that they don't think it's torn, I almost broke down into tears at them saying that, because it was like, I don't have to put my life on hold. I don't have to put my dreams on hold. So there was potential for the fight not to happen, if the results of that had been different, but everything's been good so far.
That's good. How good did you feel on fight night? Did you still feel maybe like not 100%, or were you nervous about that?
It was definitely something that was on my mind. The knee was still bothering me a little bit, and I actually talked to my personal trainer about it, and or my strength and conditioning coach. And it's always worse when I warm it up more. So I was like, I'm not gonna warm it up. I'm just gonna leave that one alone. I'll do the rest. And I did it, and I didn't feel it at all. No, no pinching, no pulling, absolutely nothing. And it hasn't really been bothering me in the past few days either. Um, my leg's been a little sore from the calf kick or three that landed and I chose not to defend. So she set those up nice.
Did you get a chance to talk to Hillary after the fight?
I did not. I know how important that fight was for her career as well. And I know how devastating that loss was for her. It's something before the fight I was talking with actually Ross Hilton's uh, daughter, and she was like, I'm gonna cheer for you both. And I'm like, I would cheer for us both too. I'm like, I am fighting her, but I do support Hillary's career because I support regional MMA. So that loss, I understand how completely devastating that is for her. And I have heard that she was saying some things in the locker room about how it's going to change kind of her trajectory a lot. She really believes that. So that's incredibly difficult.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, it was a huge fight for the both of you. Whoever got this win really kind of is catapulted really into the mix of things. I mean, you called out Dana White afterwards on the mic, which
Who am I?
hey, well, was that planned? Were you thinking about that, or that just came to you?
Just came out of my mouth. Just came out. Word vomit. I don't know. But I've had so many people be like, "Did Dana White call you yet?" I'm like, I'm not super positive that he's gonna call, but maybe he'll like think about it, and that's a win. That's a win. If he hears me say his name, I'm like, I did it.
Well, you're a girl from the Bangor, Maine area. He has a house right here. I believe it's in Levant. A lot of friends. I'm sure he had some friends that were in attendance watching you fight. So he probably knows about the outcome. And you're 5-1 now as a pro. Do you feel like you're ready right now for that jump to the UFC?
I think everyone would like to say that they're all like always ready. I'm always ready, that type of thing. But I think, like I said, I watched that fight back again, and there were some pieces that I would like to work on a little bit more. And I think doing it at a regional level could potentially be a little bit safer because of the caliber of opponent is a little bit different, and the consequence of losing isn't quite the same because I mean you lose 3 fights in a row in the UFC, or when you're signed you lose one. It really can affect your career. So I'm in this spot where if I get the call and it's the right fight, I think it's something that coach and I will definitely consider, but we are also perfectly happy staying on the regional scene for a little bit while longer and getting more experience. There's nothing wrong with the experience. So,
Can I tell you what I'd like to see next if you don't get that call to the UFC?
yes, please tell me.
So Dana White's looking for a fight, is coming to Combat Zone soon. I'd like to see you get a rematch with Gabriella Golfin because I know that you didn't like the way that fight ended. So if you go in there, you beat her, you put a stamp on that. I think it tells everyone, hey, this girl's ready for the big show.
So a fun fact I just learned, um, it was that they actually did an investigation on the decision for that fight, which I completely understand based on my response and her response and everything like that. Uh, and coach and I actually discussed that as well. One or discussed a possible rematch. One of the things that is not particularly my favorite is she fights at 125. 125. I mean, it's great to not have to cut a lot of weight, but she is bigger and stronger than me. And I mean, you could say like, oh, it's 10 pounds. It doesn't really matter. It makes a big difference, especially when it comes to like this sport. So we're not saying no to a rematch, but we're still kind of considering if that's something she would do, if she would come down in weight, or what we would kind of do to make that happen.
What do
But
you
then and the contender series or the looking for a fight is a little bit short notice.
Mhm.
and did just fight. We are still kind of anxiously awaiting to see what's going to happen with the knee. Um, and I've been having some weird, like GI problems, which I guess is super common in fighters now. There's been quite a few fighters that have issues with it, so we're kind of working on that too. So I don't know what we're doing. I think the goal is to fight in July, but I don't know. I'm along for the ride and just doing what I'm told.
Okay, well, fair enough. I'm sure if given the opportunity, you'd like the chance to win a professional title for NEF, if maybe that is your next fight.
Yeah, I mean that I would not say no.
Right.
I would. A win is fantastic at any time.
You know, I have to ask you too, Glory, because you and I both have a mutual friend who's having a really tough time right now. What did it mean to you to win the Mike Shorey Performance of the Night award?
So I was kind of after the fight, I was kind of running around doing whatever it is I was doing, and one of my corners, my cut man Levi Sewell, came up to me because you had given him the ribbon, and he was like, "Hey, you won the performance of the night," and it's one of those things that I had been seeing all these people and all of these things, and I was so happy and elated, and it's just this like heartwarming feeling knowing that I performed like that and doing it for someone like that was just it was such an amazing feeling. Arguably the best. It was like getting a hug. It was like getting a hug from someone that's really very special to this sport and everything, and I was incredibly grateful.
Good. Well, very well deserved. There was no debate. You definitely, especially because of the quality of opponent. You go in there, you finish Hilarie Rose in the first round. That deserves a performance of the night. So I know Mike was thrilled that you won the award. And again, I mean, what a night! This has to be, as of right now, just looking back at it, the probably the fondest memory right now of your MMA career. I'd say. So is that accurate?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Kind of, so it's cemented my place in regional MMA, and I'm pretty stoked about it.
How'd you celebrate the win?
We went to Applebee's. Oh my gosh. So we went to Applebee's and I'm like on this emotional roller coaster, everything, like feeling amazing, also exhausted. But we're sitting at a booth and I'm sitting next to Kira, who's one of my best friends, and across from Coach. And I'm sitting there and I probably just go, you guys, like 500 times. I was just like, you guys. Didn't say anything else. I'm like, I very rarely am I completely speechless, but I was for the first time in a very long time, I was proud of myself. So just that I'm like, wow, this is weird. It's really weird to feel good about yourself and everything like that because I do struggle so much with the confidence. So just you guys, that was it.
Well, everybody out there is thrilled for you here, especially in the greater Bangor area. Glory, you have so many fans, and what a night it was. 5-1 now. The future is bright for you. You say July is maybe the time frame that we're shooting for next. Can't get here soon enough. As always, I appreciate you doing this with me here today. Before we do sign off, as always, I want to give you the floor. Please tell people where they can follow you on social media, and I'm sure you have a zillion sponsors to thank.
Yes, okay, I do. So social media, I'm very, very creative. So it's Glory Watson MMA. Okay. So I'm very creative. Sponsors, I do this every single time. I have way too many for me to sit here and list. We'd be here all day. So always do a big blanket sponsorship thank you because I wouldn't be where I am without them. So huge thank you to all of my sponsors. They have made it possible for me to live my dream and afford to live and do the things that I need to. I travel a lot. They help with expenses for that. And a lot of them help with like my body and the recovery side of things, which is super important. All athletes should have a care team. So just super thankful for my sponsors. And then someone that I think needs to be thanked more and doesn't get thanked enough is my head coach is Chris Young. He has completely tailored his life around this sport. And right now, where I'm one of his few active fighters, he's tailor made a lot of this around me. And I will be eternally grateful for the position that he has created for me in this sport, and the things that he's taught me, and the places that we've learned, that I've been, and the things we've learned, and everything. He doesn't get enough appreciation. And so that wanted to give him that. And then we train at a lot of gyms and different people that I train with. I trained at CMBJJ. I've trained with guys from First Class. I trained with JB and Ryan Burgess out of Famoso and Rumford. I've trained with Titan. I've trained with Nostos. I've trained all over the place. And every single gym, they provide something different, but they're all fantastic guys and gals. So thanks to them too.